I'm Yam Searcy, just introducing myself again. I'm the Dean of the College of Social and Behavioral Sciences here at CSUN, and also the, thanks. All right. So the Institute for Sustainability is university-wide, but it actually is underneath the umbrella or in the portfolio of the College of Social and Behavioral Sciences, and I'm just very proud and honored to have this association and have this relationship. So the Institute has, I'll just give you just a 5-second history. The Institute for Sustainability, we have to give credit to former CSUN President Diane Harrison, who really kind of ushered in sustainability on this campus. And so she was forward thinking before many other institutions were, so we're just very grateful for that. So let me just give you the lay of the land for this panel discussion, and it really is indeed a discussion. The theme of the discussion happens to be careers in the electric vehicle and alternative fuel vehicle industry, but we plan it so that we're going to start out with discussion of careers, and our panelists are going to talk about their trajectories, their academic backgrounds and the like, and how they got here. But then also we're going to open it up because you don't have to, sometimes people think about traditional entry points in terms of degrees, and so it's not really like that. So we're really going to open it up. The last 30, the first maybe 45, 50 minutes are going to be our panelists. But then after that, we're going to open it up for Q&A, question and answers. And just if you have a question, this is an intimate audience. We definitely wanted it to be that way. So you just raise your hand or just say your question. I'm neglecting something. This is a camera, all right? So we're recording the panel discussion. I believe you could do that from your phone. You can make it turn and do all that stuff.
Because I'm not that good.
All right, okay. So, but the panelists are going to be recorded. Your questions are going to be recorded. So if you don't want to be on camera, then it's going to stay on this side and the like. So I wanted to let everybody know that as well. What I'm going to do is introduce the panelists, and then I'm going to turn it over to our acting director of the Institute for Sustainability, Sarah Johnson, and so she's going to be our moderator for the entire panel discussion. So I know this is one of the rare opportunities that we have to engage with at least one person whose vehicle is more famous than he is. And so I'm joking about this because, so I was just standing outside, and the Porsche, the BC Motos Porsche, it was there's just a crowd just around it. And I know we were talking about it, it's like anywhere you go, there's just like the car is just, I'm sure on the expressway, people are pulling up next to you and just doing all kinds of things just anytime you stop. And so we're just very fortunate. Just thank you for being here at BC. So BC from BC Motos is going to set the tone for the panelists. He's going to talk about his background. He's going to talk about his career, his educational trajectory, and his career to where he is now and also where he's going. Michelle from Galpin Motors and Galpin Motorsport, she is going to do the same thing, talk about her background and her career as well. The same thing with Scott, and the same with Tracy. Scott is with Porsche of Woodland Hills. We also have Tracy as well from Chargy, who, if you have an EV, and even if you don't, you see Chargy all around CSUN's campus, and so there's a strong connection there. So I'm very thankful for everybody for their presence, their support of this event, and also your forward thinking. So right now I'm going to turn it over to BC and then turn it over to Sarah. So welcome everybody warmly, and thank you.
Yes, good afternoon everyone. Thank you so much for joining us in this very nice environment. I want to share a little bit about my journey and how I started, and this is quite unique for me because my parents are here. I'm going to Nigeria, so no
Great job.
Yeah.
Great job.
And speaking of parents, my parents are, wow, just, you may see them, they look quite humble, but they're very, very intelligent people. My father is a geologist, quite renowned, has a doctorate as well. Went to school here in the United States. My mom is a brilliant biochemist, people tend to say, oh, BC, you do so many great things. I'm nothing compared to her. She's amazing. They went to school here in the US. And as they both went to school, graduated, and started working in different industries. My father was more in the lubricants. My mom was in the cosmetics, hair, and skin products. They had myself, my younger sister, and brother. And when I became 7 years of age, they decided to go back to Nigeria, where we're from. And so I attended most of my primary and secondary school there. I love cars, like crazy. My parents can attest to the fact, I don't remember this, but my first word was car. Strangely, second word was light, which is kind of weird, it came full circle, car light. And then I kept wondering, what did he say, car light, car light? Oh, a car light at night when it drives by, okay. So I've always had this affinity for everything automotive, but to my parents' chagrin, being that they had a cosmetics factory, they wanted me to kind of follow in the footsteps that they had with chemistry and cosmetics and hopefully take over the family business later on. But I love cars. I want to be a physicist. So as a compromise, I decided earlier on that I want to study chemical engineering, where I can combine everything mechanical and engineering-like that I loved with the appeal of my parents to do something more chemistry-related. Now, just a little sidebar here. To enter university back home, it's quite difficult, especially if you want a good curriculum. So there's this examination you have to take known as JAMB, Joint Admissions Matriculation Board Examination. If you fail or don't have high enough marks, you have to wait another year to take it. So I saw all of my aunties and uncles and cousins trying to get into medicine or engineering or law, and if they don't quite get the high enough marks, they would have to wait another year. So in normal BC fashion, I wanted to test it out to see if I could take a mock exam or maybe just try it out and get a feel for it. So when I get to the American equivalent of 12th grade, I can get right in easily. So my parents' blessing, at the age of 14, I decided to take the examination to enter university for engineering, and I passed. So with their, thank you. So both my parents asked me, what do you want to do? And I said, I'd like to go. So I got admission into Anambra State University of Technology to study petrochemical engineering at the age of 15, which at the time, I believe was the youngest person to enter university in my country. I'm sure someone's destroyed it by now. But I was very proud to be able to get university admission and to be one of the few engineers in my hometown where I'm from. And after a year of studies, I didn't learn anything. We just didn't have technology back home. Our books are from the 60s. I had this thirst for knowledge around engineering. We just didn't have it. Had a discussion with my parents, and with their blessing, they decided to allow me to come to the US and follow in their footsteps. Unfortunately, my dad had to go to Europe to buy some machinery. My mom had to take care of the factory, so my mom was able to escort me to our country capital, and I had to travel to LAX by myself with 2 suitcases. And a family that my father knew, the Lancasters, had a sign that said BC, and I met them at LAX, and they picked me up, and I'm in America, I'm excited, it's great. Missing home, missing the food, missing the clothing, missing the climate, but it was good. Long story short, the family I lived with had some hard times financially. I had to move to Wyoming. So my dad knew about this family in this wonderful Jewish community. And he knew them when he was going to school in the 60s and 70s and said, hey, you should go hang out there, and I think the family would take you in and you'll be good with them. And the city with this great Jewish community that's very strong was Compton. Compton wasn't quite Jewish in the 80s and 90s. A lot had changed. But I moved in with the Jones family. She was one of the ladies who, no matter what happened in her environment, she would never leave. Now, why is this city important to my progress? There was a pastime in that city that kind of pointed me more in the direction of cars and racing. And it was street racing. So, I'm sorry, Dad. Sorry, Mom. But I became quite naughty because I had a CRX, which was my first car. I bought this as a student car. I wanted something reliable and economical, so I got a CRX HF, no air conditioning, no radio, 1.5 liter single cam. Very, very economical to drive, very lightweight, great gas mileage. That was my car. On the same token, at night you hear all these cars running around, so I go check it out. There was street racing, I was really excited. And then one day in the morning I got up and heard this weird tone emanating from the back of my car. I had a hole in my exhaust, and it was weird. And I liked the sound, but I knew it wasn't right, so I went to the dealership, and the dealership was going to charge me $350 to fix it. Yeah, he did. And it was too much for me as a student, so I went to a local muffler shop. They installed a Dynamax Ultraflow on it, which is cheaper, but it had a nice sound. That sound was intoxicating. Then I noticed that I had a little bit more power. And then I noticed that my gas mileage got better. So I was intrigued and hooked about what did I do to create such a positive environment of sound, economy, and power. And that kind of led me to the path that I continued to kind of research and use my knowledge from engineering to kind of modify my vehicle. In the mid to late 90s, you couldn't go to a BC Moto or an eBay or Amazon to buy parts. You kind of had to figure things out yourself. So I went around the greater LA area, met people like Nick Ayres from Ayres Pistons, Eddie Skandarian from Iski Cams, and it kind of picked their brain on what they did in hot rodding in the 60s to make their cars faster. And I used the same technology and influence, bought some books too, to try and do it to my car, and started street racing. Started making lots of money. Street racing. I made $5,000 to win a race, which is pretty good. But then I went to Ontario one evening and saw a mishap. And unfortunately saw someone pass away, and I kind of quit cold turkey. Started racing at local drag strips, and then John Ishinaga, who was a representative at American Honda, saw me at Fontana Raceway racing, liked the fact that I like to interact with people and talk and have fun and win, and people crowd around and I share my knowledge with them, and he said, we want you to race for us. And we'll pay you $2,000 every time you won down the track strip. That was a godsend for me. So long story short, I finished up my chemical engineering degree, got a job in pharmaceutical research while I was still racing, having fun. I liked research, but the lab rats that we weren't making as much money as people in sales. As you can see, I love people, I love technology. So I felt that sales would be a great place for me to defect into. So I got into pharma sales, did quite well financially, while at the same time also racing and creating products for my race cause. Which, as you go to a racetrack and do quite well, people tend to ask you, BC, what did you do differently? How do you gain 0.2 of a second, 0.3, 4 miles an hour? Well, I built this new exhaust manifold design or new camshaft design. Well, could you make one for me? Mom, I don't know if you remember at an old house in Hacienda Heights, one weekend I was traveling back east, and you had to sell for me 13 exhaust manifolds. So she had, in my garage, 13 exhaust manifolds. My dealer at the time had to come by and pick it up, and I was traveling back east. And each of those units were $1,100 each. So it was a nice chunk of change for a side gig or something I enjoyed. And fast forward to 2006, I decided to leave my corporate job. My parents got the same way. They're like, oh, what are you doing? I decided to kind of pursue my dreams. I wasn't married at the time, didn't have any children to my knowledge. It was great for me to say, hey, maybe try and take this risk and leave and kind of focus on motorsports. I told my parents they weren't quite happy with me, but it was a passion I had. And I had saved up enough money to live in austerity for a couple of years, and if it didn't work, I'd go back to corporate. Well, started with a small facility in Pomona, about this size, about 1,000 square foot. A couple of years later, I had a bigger facility in Chino, about 2,500. Then went to Ontario for 4,500, and now I have a 15,000 square foot facility. And had the opportunity to continue with American Honda, building cars for major auto shows and for SEMA, and it ended up being a great journey for me. Recently, however, with the pandemic, it kind of killed the events market, so I couldn't do much with the OEMs around that. And something else quite interesting happened. All that fun stuff that we used to do with me designing go-fast parts, turbochargers and exhaust manifolds, the EPA started sending agents out to kind of hit some of us high-speed shops. And something else happened to me. We put a car for Harman Kardon. Harman Kardon, for some of you who won't know, they own a company called JBL Sound Equipment. And they gave me access to the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas, as far back as 2019. And when I went there after building a car for them, I built this crazy Hyundai, it was one of my accounts, Tucson with turbocharger, really nice, bagged, with a nice sound system. I went into the convention center in Vegas, and I saw all my partners, American Honda, Ford, who I worked with then as well, Hyundai, who I worked with as well, even companies that didn't come to SEMA, like Mitsubishi and Porsche were there. They all had booths at CES with electric vehicles. By the way, guys, I hated electric cars. I thought they were rubbish. I thought electric cars were for tree huggers and people who wore hemp sandals and individuals who didn't care about performance. So I didn't want anything to do with it. Plus, I had customers who told me, EVs are for, it has no soul, it's rubbish. And even if people came to my shop with a Tesla, I wouldn't sit in it. I'm not sitting in a car, leave my shop, I'm not on petrol. I go to CES, all the cars for all my partners were electric. I was even quoting Toyota at the time. They had an electric car in the vehicle, in their booth, with a demo of what they saw as a future that's sustainable and a human-machine interaction. So I felt if I need to stay in this industry and remain relevant and work with these partners, I need to learn this technology. That pink car out there was my first stint or first experience with building an electric car. I begrudgingly, I'm being kind, I hated building that car. I thought it was a waste of my time. I had this chassis that I had in the shop that kind of fell through with a contract I had with one of my partners. So I had this beautiful Kremer K3 body on this 84 911 chassis that was sitting at a paint shop. I had this electric setup on paper. And I didn't want to build it. But after 11 months, I was able to put that together. And ladies and gentlemen, the first time I drove that car in the back of my shop, I almost urinated on myself. It was the most amazing experience. It was so fast. By the way, I had half the battery pack in there. When half throttle, I drive any of my petrol cars, and I almost lost it. And then it had this weird sound, like this weird, because I didn't block anything off. There's no sound ending in the car. It feels like an old Porsche, smells like an old Porsche, but it has technology that's really forward thinking. It's amazing sound and doesn't leak oil. It's awesome. It was fantastic. And overnight, ladies and gentlemen, it changed my life. I became an advocate. So fast forward to today, 90% of the vehicles in my facility are electric car conversions, where we typically take cars of historical significance and convert them to EV. I was fortunate enough last year to be part of the We Are Porsche exhibit, a collaboration between the Peterson Automotive Museum and Porsche in Germany, where they were celebrating the 75 years of Porsche as a brand. And they had that car on display for almost a year, swapped that out in January for another Moby Porsche 911 that I built that's in this museum right now. And that also created more customers for me as well. So my journey has been that so far, more to come. From a gentleman who loved everything automotive, wanted to be a physics major, to be a chemical engineer, getting into pharmaceuticals, research and sales, to now having a company that is admired all around the world for taking cars of historical significance and infusing zero-emission technology into it. So that's my journey. I look forward to any questions later on. But yeah, it's a pleasure meeting all of you.
Thank you, BC, for sharing your story.
My pleasure.
So now I want to open up the time for the rest of the panelists to share your story as well. If you want to talk about your journey to where
After
you
that,
are.
Sorry, Mom.
Don't feel like you need to be a great storyteller like BC. We all have our own stories, and so that's why we're here today, is to talk about how we all have these different paths and lived experiences that get us to where we are. You know, we all ended up in the same room at this time. So yeah, Michelle, if you want to just share a bit about what your schooling that you did, what you were interested in, how you ended up at Galpin, what you do now.
I would say the only thing that mirrors him is that my background is varied as much to get to where I am today. I actually grew up in Northern California. I grew up in Marin County, and somehow I ended up liking chickens. So I was in 4-H. I ended up at UC Davis studying animal science with animal science and business management with a dairy focus and an avian sciences minor. So I studied chickens and dairy. But while at UC Davis, the ASUCD runs the buses that run in the community. So the double-decker buses that you have, they brought over a bunch of them in the 70s. They've converted them recently, some of them to double-deck buses, and it's run by ASUCD, and so it's students that get to drive the buses. So I kind of got into automotive by driving these buses at UC Davis. So I worked my way through college by paying for all of my stuff, driving buses, and then I ended up going to a different company, driving shuttle buses up to Reno and back. And I got married, left school, my father-in-law owned a smog shop. And he said, hey, I need somebody to write service for me. And I said, okay. And so I learned all of more the fundamentals and basics from him about why certain things are needed at certain times and how cars work. Because I already kind of had tractors under my belt from all of my agricultural business background, as well as driving all the buses. So I can drive anything up to 45 feet with double axles. I love it. I love driving buses. I kind of missed that part, so I was never going to do it in LA. And then, again, things changed in life. I ended up going back to school, graduating, working for UC Davis in cooperative extension. So I worked with students. And I worked with UC Irvine, and I worked with students again. And then 08 happened, and my program was self-funded at the university, so it got cut. And there was a receptionist position at a Ford dealership. Okay, hey, may as well try. I need a job. I don't care what kind of job it is right now. Let me just get back in the automotive business. And the service manager at the time said, hey, I need somebody to write service in the quick lane. I thought, oh, okay, I was at the shop before. I can go to a dealership. Oh, boy, was that different. Going from an independent shop to a dealership is night and day. They are nowhere near the same. And I got thrown into the deep end real quick, real fast, and learned a lot about cars and the new technology, because the years that I was out of the car business was the 10 years that Bluetooth came in, voice to text came in, hybrid came in, all of that new technology came in the years that I was out of the automotive business. I remember the first time sitting down in a hybrid and turning on the car going, it's not on. It's not, I can't move, and like panicking, what did we do to this customer's car? But I see that a lot with the students, because at Galvin, what I do now, let me go back a bit, is I'm a technician champion. So what I do is all recruitment, all training, development, guidance for all of the techs through all of our 13 brands, primarily with our Ford dealership and Lincoln dealership. So when I have students who are coming to be with us or just got hired on, it's their first time they sit in an e-vehicle and they're like, why isn't it on? I can relate to that because I've had that experience myself. But getting to know and getting to understand all of that stuff was a very steep learning curve that now I'm very comfortable with it because I have a lot of technical background within the automotive industry from what I've done working at the dealerships. I've worked for Hyundai, and then I worked for Ford Motor Company as the technician recruiter for Southern California. So I've done everything recruitment wise, and part of what my job is to say, hey, it's not the job that your uncles or dad or grandparents did 20, 30 years ago. It's not the grease monkey job that everybody thinks, and oh, you're just a mechanic, you're just swapping parts. It's not. There is so much technology in these vehicles. Every day something changes. And the one thing on my side as a dealership, what I try to convey to customers, because they think I'm driving a car. My perspective and what I try to educate people and students and people who want to get into the automotive industry, you're driving a computer. It happens to have wheels. Because there's like 80 to 60 to 90 modules on those things. If your car doesn't turn on, it's not just a battery or it's not just gas. It could be 10 other things and 10 different electrical diagrams that you have to follow to figure out why it's not starting. So there's so much technology that you have to understand to be able to fix cars these days, because it's not going anywhere. And, you know, cars are our tools, so what tool suits a customer is different from one person to another. And what tool or what capacity the technicians have changes from one to another as well. So as part of my job and what I do now at Galpin is identifying the students and say, what do you want to do? Where is your specialty? Is your specialty going to be in diesel? Is your specialty going to be in transmission? Is your specialty going to be electrical? Because those are so many different skill sets. And say 80% of our diagnostics that we have in the dealership right now have everything to do with electrical. Whether it's a sensor, a camera, a battery, a hybrid battery, anything is all electrical. And like I said, it's more of a technical job anymore than it is, say, your traditional blue-collar mechanic type job as it is anymore. It's really changing very fast. And I kind of like being in it because it's kind of fun. Being able to see all the new stuff and go, ooh, this is kind of cool. And you think, oh, I'm a traditionalist, right? I'm not gonna do that. First time I got in the transit van, Ford's got this e-transit van. And they're just, hey, just drive around. Okay, fine. First time I got in that thing, I loved it. Because it was like me getting in a bus, but a bus that can go 0 to 60 real fast and nobody knows about it. It's like a sleeper car out there. Because you put your foot down and you are in your seat real quick. And that's kind of the new thing about, especially where we are right now, that I'm experiencing, and I'm sure everybody on the panel is experiencing. Ooh, there's always something new. It's not the same stuff anymore. There's something new and something new to learn. And so for me, it's also something new to teach that I see with my technicians and students that I go to at all the schools and stuff. So kind of like him, kind of varied background onto where I am today. And I enjoy it. Otherwise, I wouldn't drive all the way from Norco to Galpin every day. So, yeah.
How you doing? Scott Stanley. I'm the general manager. Proud to be the general manager of Porsche Woodland Hills, which, as we heard from Porsche 2 weeks ago, the #1 seller of electric Porsches in the world. Now, similar to what they're talking about, my joy, my purpose, my why. At home, we have 6 kids, 10 grandkids. She had 4, I had 2. It's on her. Now, it's gonna be 11 grandchildren. Anyway, yeah. So I have a storied past, which may give hope to some. I did not finish my degree yet. Got into family quick, but I had a wonderful grandfather who never said no to me and always answered all my questions, and there was a ton of questions. I was that little kid that just, why is it blue, why is it blue, and he taught me how to fix things, and he wouldn't let me ride a bicycle until I could fix the bicycle, which meant he took my spokes out of my bicycle. And if anybody has ever tuned a bicycle spokes, it's very old school, right? And then he had me rebuild my aunt's 69 Toyota Corona, which I ended up getting when I was 15 or 16 when I got my license. So there was a lot of things there. It was never no. It was always how. It was always why. And you broke it and you found a way. And so he's a wonderful, wonderful person. And I owe so much to him. My parents, shortly after that, when I was 8, 9 years old, got a job as entertainers on cruise ships. And they weren't the glory cruise ships. They were the terrible cruise ships that leaked and smelled and everybody got sick at the same time. So 300 people and we traveled around the world. My mom's concert pianist still plays every day for 8 hours and wonderful, one of the best in the 70s. At one point we were guests of USSR in 1977 in Leningrad or St. Petersburg now. And we were bussed around and I'm 13 and very aware of things because I've been on the ship steadily since I was 10, 11 years old. So I spent almost 2 years at sea. But I was aware enough and I had enough wonderful people that, like the first time I went on the ship, I ran into an electrician. I said, "This thing run on 110 or, is it 6 volt, 12 volt? What's with it?" And like how do you know that stuff, right? I mean, and I looked really young. I was 7, I looked 5. When I was 13, I looked 8, 9. But I talked my way into everywhere except for the engine room. And they taught me everything about everything, except for obviously the engine room. At night, I was an entertainer. I was dressed like this. So you said dress comfortably. This is how I play basketball. But I was ruined somewhat for the structure of school and the structure of things. At 15, I actually left home, and I ended up back with my mom shortly after, but experienced the world. I should say that highlight of the cruise industry, wonderful people, and I just learned that alcohol and money is a mood amplifier. If you're a jerk, you're probably just more of a jerk. The more you drink, the more you have, and that kind of made who I was. And ultimately, getting into the car business, the same thing. When I first got in the car business, it wasn't as reputable, right?
Yes.
And I figured that the only way that we could make a reputable place that I would be proud to have my children work or your children work is if I could get in charge of them. And so that's what I'm really just anti-establishment. I just wanted to change the norm, and I wanted to make it a great place for clients. And Honda has the 3 joys. We both experienced Honda at the same time. And it's the 3 joys: the joys of manufacturing, joys of the interaction with the client, and the joys of ownership. And that's how they founded their company, and I'm very similar in that than people that I work with now. Flash forward, actually, a fun stat. I had wonderful parents that somehow missed the parenting gene. And a testament to that is I got to, Russia was very interesting. We were off on our own a bit, but I also got to be on an island with Aborigines that there was no roads, no nothing else, about 6 months later. So I got to, that is both worlds. But we're in Sydney, Australia, and my parents' breakfast, we're entertainers, so we're always breakfast with people. And you want to go with us? No. So I caught a bus 20 miles away to watch the grand opening of Star Wars, and ran into my parents coming out of the theater. And I had no qualms about that. And luckily, there's a lot of things going on in the world. Luckily, I had a lot of good people that looked out for me. But it just taught me that, just about anything's possible if you go at it. And everything's not possible if you just, if that's your attitude. If you wake up in the morning and you're going to have a bad day, you're not going to be disappointed. If you wake up in the morning and you go after it and you take other people with you, you're going to live joyous lives, right? So I'm proud to be here. I'm humbled to be here, especially with your educations, because I did drop out so I could raise some kids, and I was a mechanic, getting into the dealerships, and then into sales, and then I just hated the values of some of the people, but I stuck with it because I figured that we could build something special. Came to Porsche 3 years ago. We went after something that everybody said would never work, which is the Taycan, and we bought up everybody's leftovers, and we took a big gamble, and it paid off. And it was never for ego or for, obviously we're business, similar to you, it's the passion. And I drove the cars, and they're insane. They're crazy. They're not gas engines, but there's room for both. And it was really about what the customers wanted, and we just went after what our clients and our community wanted. And so I'm proud that we bring tax dollars locally. I'm proud to be involved with colleges locally, and bringing students from that point, like I was at, where other people mentored me, that do I go this way and maybe that's not a great career, or maybe maybe it's just a bad life, or can I get the structure, which I always instruct everybody. As I said, I got 6 kids, we have 8 degrees with them, mostly nursing. Do they go here, or can they get into our industry? We take them on as apprentices, just as she's doing. Run them through tires, run them through electrical, run them through the basic stuff, keep it safe for them, because unfortunately high voltage, is very dangerous. Train them up. And I've got people now that we've been doing that with for 10, 15 years, and they bought houses and they've got kids and their own, and they're actually in positions running dealerships and doing the same thing. So that's what I do with it.
Hi everyone, I'm Tracy. I work at Chargy. We're the electric vehicle charging infrastructure company that supplies stations here on campus. I lead the product and customer experience teams. I don't know how many of you are familiar with product management, sort of also kind of new kind of job role in the industry, but basically what we try to do for the company is understand what, why, and how, what are the things that we're selling, right? And how does that manifest? And then we keep them, basically the company on track with our roadmap, and also trying to make sure it applies to our values and vision and mission. The reason why product and customer care, customer experience are together is because if product makes a decision about something, we also have to hear about it, right, in order to learn from it. So there's no decision or no action that's taken that we we don't learn from and we don't hear from and aren't responsible for. So yeah, and not directly responsible for the vehicles, but certainly responsible for making them run. And that's a pretty big responsibility these days because that's what's preventing people from adopting, right? That's one of the main concerns is what am I gonna do if I'm in the middle of the road somewhere, don't have power, I wanna have a charge every night. So for us, it's like a mission critical service actually. Which means that we're 24/7. My team is online every single minute of every single day, checking these stations. We're looking at them every 30 seconds. And just because we wanna make sure you can get home, right? So it's really important. So there's been a lot to learn from that. And I guess a little bit about my background. I didn't study what I do today. Much like, well, I couldn't cut it with biochem. So I went to school for biochem and art. My art degree was a secret degree. My mom's actually here on campus as well, just over there. Yeah, so what happened was I was pursuing biochem. I thought I was being orthodontist, because I like to fix things, but I don't like it when people die. So I was like, I want to be a doctor, I want to like fix people's faces, this would be great. But then partway through, I didn't find a lot of enjoyment in what I was doing. So I stuck with just the art degree because I felt like I was creative, I felt like I wanted to do design, problem solving. But it was really hard to get a job right out of school. I graduated in 2010, which was a tough time. But what I did instead was I found internships. I actually biked. I don't think you can do this today. I like biked to a couple, companies and just said like, hey, can I work for you for free? And so I started with internships that were unpaid. They eventually hired me. I did work at Paper Source. I don't know if you guys know that place. Made arts and crafts. I also worked in a bakery. I made wedding cakes in the morning before going to school. I also worked on my on-campus art gallery as an archivist. And then someone was like, you should apply to work at Martha Stewart. So that's what I ended up doing. So I moved to New York right after graduation. They paid me $20 a day.
Oh.
Yeah, $20 a day. I slept on a couch for 3 months at my aunt's house. But it was awesome. It was like everything was so new. I was there to work in the crafts department. And so it was literally like, make what we want now was kind of the job. So they'd be like, make a pillow of this size, in this color in an hour, right? Or go find the specific thing I need in the city right now. So it was a problem solving job, and I realized that that's what I really loved about my work was figuring out what someone needed right then and there, and it led to customer obsession, right? So I have internal customers and I have external customers, right? So CSUN, for example, is an external customer, but I also work for everyone that works at the company. So one of the best qualities, I think, for someone who wants to work in product management is customer obsession. I think it leads to a lot of empathy, because what you're trying to understand is what that other person's experiencing and trying to help improve that. So yeah, that's kind of where I ended up being where I am today. Very untraditional path, worked in pharma as well. So it was Martha Stewart, pharma, telecom, and then now EV charging. But as they say, it's like a zigzag going forward, but when you look back, it's just a straight line. So yeah, that's my background.
Thank you for sharing. So I think the common thread here is that there's no linear path, right? So you have a lot of students in the audience. I think that's a really important message to take away, is that you don't need to think of your college trajectory or your academic trajectory as going from this to this to this, right? I think all of us can show that it kind of goes up and down and swiggles back and forth, and you go on cruise ships and you work as a double-decker bus driver and you're an artist and you're doing all these different things that lead you to where you are. So I think that's a really important message. And for the students in the room, if you all can share some advice that you have for students interested in pursuing a career in the EV industry, or just in kind of changing the world in general, like that sustainability component. What are some tips, things that you learned along the way that you could share with the students in the room today?
I would say having an open mind and staying persistent. Technology continues to improve daily, and if you stay stagnant or stale, it can be a detriment to your progress. So having that open mind to look at things in such a way that you want to absorb and help improve yourself, improve things around you, and then staying persistent, because many times you hit these roadblocks, you just have to push through and stay focused on it. Is what has helped me tremendously, and that's the advice I can have for anyone who wants to pursue not only this but any other industry in today's world.
Anyone else have anything to add?
Yeah, I would say to broaden the definition of sustainability for yourself as well, right? So for me, I personally have always been really invested. My parents let me have a compost bin with a plexiglass front, so I could watch the worms in our kitchen growing up.
Wow.
Like, you know, personally for me, it's like I've been composting forever. Like I love it, I live it. However, finding a place for that in your career can be challenging, right? So there's many ways that you can approach job sustainability. Meaning it doesn't just have to be EVs, it can be mass transit, right? Or it can be a service that's being provided. Those are often also sustainable, right? There's zero waste, you know, delivery services and things like that. So it's just kind of looking for ways that can be meaningful to you without it directly being like, I'm gonna, you know, sell a sustainable good, right? But services can be that way. And yeah, just remaining curious about that and being open to accepting those kinds of roles.
I'd say there's a lot that we say to technicians. One of the things I've always said when we go to the schools, what have you, is the brand is Porsche. Porsche Woodland Hills is the brand within the brand. If you're coming to work, you're the brand within the brand. And are you the on-time, dependable, open-minded? You know, you never have to be 100% correct. As a matter of fact, I'll point out to people that the opposite of success is not failure. The opposite of success is not trying. So try. Get out there, put yourself out there, find your passion. If it's sustainability, go after it. And that's been part of my success and a lot of my passion. So just get out there.
I would say don't be so, like he said, kind of keep an open mind, but also to the fact is don't be so loyal to where you are that you're miserable. And some people, you love the passion of what you're doing where you are, but what we consider sustainability today may be something completely different 10 years from now. So we have to be able to pivot and adapt as things change. So don't get so, this is what I wanna do and stay there, or say, this is the path that I wanna go down EVs, but over here there's something else, but you're so committed to being here that you stay to where you end up hating what you do. You're never gonna be a productive employee, and you're never going to be a happy person at home if you're miserable in what you're doing. Like, I studied animals in production, but with that I had 4-H and all of my engagement. Well, that for me transferred over really well to working with technicians, and my ability to stay where I was in agriculture wasn't going to be sustainable in California because it's not there anymore. So I had to pivot so that I could be happy with what I was doing. So like the fact that today EVs, like which Honda has hydrogen vehicles? Honda has the I should know that.
Toyota.
And CNG. I drove the CNG buses too, those are so fun to drive. But like I said, what we think sustainability is right now could be completely different 10 years from now. Because we all thought CNG was gonna be the big thing and all cars were gonna be CNG when I was in college, and that was years ago. And now we're into hybrids and EVs, so be adaptable and adapt to what makes you happy. Don't stay miserable, no matter what everybody else says.
Such good advice, yeah. So being open-minded, persistent, having that passion and not being so stuck in being loyal to something that you stay with that path and being able to be, evolve and, adapt.
Evolve or die.
What role do you see EV professionals playing in the future towards transition to a more sustainable future? What role do you see EV playing in that?
I can speak to what I tend to focus on in my industry, which is high performance. I see it plays a significant role because in the circles I travel in motorsports and performance, many times getting from point A to point B in the quickest time possible, shortest amount of time. And you cannot shake a stick at the performance advantages of electric motors, whether as an entity by itself or in combination with other types of propulsion, being like a hybrid or whatnot. So I see significant opportunities there where it plays a very strong role in motorsports and in mobility. The sad thing, at least in my industry, is there's still this difficulty with adaptation. Above and beyond finding places to charge, there's just this inherent dislike of this new technology, or relatively new technology. It's been around for a while, but it's a bit stagnant. And I'm trying to help create an opportunity where that is put to the side. That's why I build these cars that kind of look very attractive and so on and so forth, to try and get the youth involved and try and convince other individuals that this is a very nice mode of transportation, a very great opportunity for you to be a better driver, racer, and be more professional and more successful. So, long answer to a short question, yes, I think it's quite critical and can help significantly, and something that will push us towards a brighter future, no matter what we look at, motorsports or mobility.
I think the role that EVs play, right? So one is in localizing energy production, right? So no longer relying as much on petroleum, right? So it gives the opportunity for people to generate electricity, right, locally and have it not travel as far, which is more efficient. There's also the opportunity for cleaner air, right? So those are the things that it helps contribute. I think that the way that we approach electrification as far as it comes, like, so there's a lot of fleet miles, right, that are driven that could be electrified. And it is important to get passenger vehicles to convert over to EV, right? So, you know, a lot of us are driving as one person in one car, right? You're just moving yourself, which is not very efficient. I know there's been a big push to electrify buses, but those are actually pretty efficient as they are. So certainly getting consumers behind, offering them great products, right? A reason to change. I haven't met anyone who hasn't been in one and hasn't just loved it. I don't know, how many of you guys drive EVs? Anybody? Yeah, it's you never really want to go back, right? So there is a value to the person actually at the end of the day. But for me, it's, you know, it's gonna have to take a blend of things, right? Just EVs can be micro-mobility. It means an electric scooter. It means smaller cars. It means so many things, you know, mass transit, all that stuff. So it's part of the solution. It's not gonna be the only thing that drives the difference, but it certainly makes a really big one, right? And I think offering cars that are appealing makes a huge difference, because way back when, they looked dorky. I mean, they were like, I'm driving an EV, you know, like it just was and now they don't have to look like that, and that has made all the difference. Look at all the cars on the road. So
To make EVs cool.
exactly.
Definitely. So kind of, oh, sorry, Michelle, did you have something?
Well, I was gonna say we have to, I would say kind of moving forward too, is it can't be a one size fits all. You know, it can be hybrids, it can be full EV, because what the type of driving I do is not the type of driving he does. And the type of driving that people do in the inner city is not the same type of driving that, you know, ranchers in Texas are gonna do. So we have to be able to see that there's different needs, and now I would say more recently, we have product lines from all of the multiple manufacturers to not have just the Prius and just the Tesla and just the C-Max. Because Ford has kind of been under the radar. We've been producing hybrids since 2010. And as on the service side, like our C-Max and our square body Fusion and our square body Escape, a lot of them are still on the road with the original battery 12 years later. And they had better storage and better mileage than, say, a Prius did. Of course, I have to say a Ford thing, but I do like that product. And as a service advisor, like, I didn't make much money on those products because they were built really well. And now that they're out there, like I said, everybody's like, oh yeah, hey, there's this kind and there's that kind. So realize that it doesn't just have to be, I have to drive a E all the time. Well, maybe it's a hybrid sometimes, or maybe like she was saying, it's an electric scooters. Never mind the electric motorcycles that are out there right now too, and that are kind of incredible. And you see a lot of the police officers are driving. I see them out there doing e-motorcycles. They just kind of sneak up to kind of have an open mind in what fits you and your family or you and your business, that it's not a one size fits all, that will make it sustainable moving forward.
the mandate from the state of California, if you buy an electric vehicle in California, which very few people talk about, is it's 10-year warranty on the battery, regardless, and 150 10-year 100 on the battery, sorry, and 10-year 150. So it's going to be around for a while. There are other fuels that are coming out. Porsche and 6 other companies are working on liquid hydrogen, which is very stable. It's a lot like gasoline, handles like gasoline. If it plays out the way it could in the next 5-7 years, replace at 89 on the pump, and you've got a distribution system, and you could run older Porsches or whatever car, Fords. I'm a big fan of Fords. You could run those things. I have one. Anyways, 66. I'm gonna run hydrogen on it, but they're running it on the racetracks right now, and it has the same performance characteristics, or very similar to gasoline, and there's no output. It's as clean as anything's running. The only carbon that you have at that point is the oil that's in the engine. So that could be a way to go, but that's not gonna replace electric. Electric's firmly got a spot, and then electric will shift also with some of the manufacturers to more hybrid systems, but that's actually more complex than just having electric or a car, because now you've got to have both combined, and they have to, now instead of the 70 or 80 computers, you got 110 computers coming together, and you've got to make that all work. So it's a great industry. If you're thinking on the mechanical side or technical side, technologists, I think it's got a great future, and it's a career. If you're going on whether it's the retail side, dealership side, mechanical side, there's not enough people out there for it, and it's well paying, and if you just learn it, take care of it, it's not that much of a challenge. Just want to be careful around the electric, but I've got people that work on cars for 2 weeks, don't get dirty, and it's a very reputable position.
That actually brings me to my last question. I have one burning question, then we'll open it up to the audience for questions. But along those same lines, if there's students that are interested in potentially pursuing a career in this field, what are some emerging positions that are growing? So it would be like in high demand or growing that would be likely for a student to be able to find a job in 4 or 5 years after they graduate?
Well, with my relationship with OEMs, there seem to be quite a bit of opportunities in engineering and design. So everything from the coding side to being able to design components where they can fit together and working with unison. In my own personal industry, my facility, we constantly need people for design, where it's computer aided drafting a CAD, or even in programming as well. So I see that continuing, especially on the technical side, to be a very robust, well-needed opportunity.
Anyone else in your companies?
Well, for us, we have gas, so we do have a lot of CAD design, but a lot of it is like, I have actually students who are here that are working in my shop, and even if you do get a bachelor's degree, working in the automotive industry, like I said before, is really more of a mechanical engineer anymore, because you're doing so much electrical diagrams and pinpoint testing. So if you tend to want to be a hands-on kind of person, and like, I don't want the corporate gig kind of thing, you can go work at a shop because you understand those fundamentals and you can build on those fundamentals. Or even if you're something else, you can always go into sales and promote the EV and the hybrids. There's finance that goes in that you have to EV and hybrid and finance. There's all kinds of different things that you can study that transfer over into, whether it be automotive, but in all the other products that go into, because think of all the solar companies that are out there that need people to lay out the designs, figure out the electronics and how much power and how many grids they need and where the lines go. That's a lot of mechanical and engineering for all of those different systems that are part of the main system for all the different electrical type stuff out there. So there's a lot of different paths, like she was saying. It's not just one form of sustainability, there's multiple ways of sustainability.
Definitely design engineering roles are in high demand in our company, and those folks are the ones, basically building out the design plans for where the charging stations are going to go, whether or not the building has enough power, all of that stuff. We also have an internal team of electricians and electrical foremen who do all of the building for us as well. And that's on the operations side, right? We then have the service side, and on the service side you have software engineers, you have product managers like myself, customer care, you have network technicians who are also helping support. So again, it's like the venue build is one team, and those have engineers, and then the service side has engineers as well to make everything work. So those are the people that we're looking for all the time.
Similar in retail, we've got service repair. Repair is great. Service, we don't, we have some just straight oil changes and things like that. But when it comes to electric vehicles, the service times are every 2 years instead of every year. Service is much easier. It's HEPA filters and things like that, tires and what have you. But when something does go haywire with 110 computers, you've got to be intelligent enough and take that challenge. It's actually, most of the time, it's a lot of fun to do that. So if you like to work on things and you like the challenges and variety, it's a great career to get into. There's service advisors where you're helping customers through the angst of what's wrong with my car. And by the way, they say all the electric cars are broken. They're not. It's 40% of our sales. It's only 15% of our service work currently. And then you can shift over to sales, which is really a lot of fun to take people from hating gas, hating electric, and actually within a year, 2 years, test drives. I had a customer borrow one for a service car. And they came to me, this was just last week, they came in and said, I hated that car, I hated the Taycan. I drove it 2 years ago, but you forced me to take one while my car was in service, and I just traded my car.
Wow.
And that's the fun, that's one of the joys of being up there. And then, it's a good career on sales and on gas or electric. Porsche is pushing more electric coming out. But you're basically introducing people, you're educating people on how it can work in their life, and you're a part of that, and it's a big part of it. So that's a joy of the day, lots of hugs.
I just wanted to add one last thing to that too. Like if you're not an electric engineer, right? So like I am not, right? There are definitely roles at companies for, our marketing teams out there, account management, a lot of project managers as well, because we're managing a huge pipeline of construction projects. We have technical project managers. We also have just like cross-functional lifecycle project managers that are helping after venue, after you put the station in the ground, make sure that everything goes well and exactly to plan. So there are a lot of roles for, people who are not necessarily directly involved with the technical aspects of charging or of automotive that are also critical roles in the team and making sure that everything actually works. So that, always opportunities outside of that.
Great point. So we have about 20 minutes for Q&A from the audience. If you can just state your name and then whether you're a student or a community member or an employee, and state your question, and definitely take advantage of this opportunity. We have these great panelists for another 20 minutes or so.
First of all, I want to say I'm Cedric, and I'm a faculty member in the College of Social Science. And my son, he graduated mechanical engineering in 2017. I wanted him to get into a STEM field. Obviously, when he moved, my sisters can't say failure to launch now that he moved and everything. But he's not in the field that he's in, and so I'm trying to figure out how I can give information to him to seek out this opportunity. My other question, you mentioned Star Wars. What is your vision for the next generation of EV?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, our cars gonna fly anytime soon. There are helicopter cars out there right now, and EV is a great way to do that if you can just lighten up the batteries. You get planes, if they can go off as solar, they could fly around the world with no emissions, period. And that's where we'll go, composite materials and all that stuff. And I think in the next 5-10 years, we're gonna see a lot more of that.
I see, as you mentioned, batteries. Batteries are key when it comes to the whole EV space. Right now, a lot of, used to be nickel metal hydride and some manganese components as one batteries, and the most popular one is lithium ion, but it does have some setbacks. From what data I've been seeing recently with solid state batteries, being that they can be much lighter, have a lot more power and energy density, I foresee seeing vehicles a lot more cost effective, having a lot more range, and with higher, what we call C ratings in the industry, we can charge and discharge even better, faster. So cars will be quicker, but we also charge vehicles much quicker. I mean, don't be surprised in the nearest future that you can charge a vehicle from 0 to even 90 state of charge within the same time that it costs you or the time it takes you to fill up a tank of gas. So I foresee that. I also foresee, maybe due to adoption and some opportunities as well, more hybrids. I see that coming to the horizon as well. And it's something that is kind of getting near and dear to my heart, other means of cleaner alternative fuels, hydrogen, ammonia. There's some stuff coming on the horizon that could be pretty exciting. But yeah, on the EV space, better, faster batteries. In regard to your son, I'll give you my card and shoot me an email. I'm very connected in the industry. I'd be more than happy to help whether he's in California or not. I'm going to make some things happen. We need more people. We need some more great engineers out there. Anyway,
Thank you.
my pleasure.
I'd say, kind of along the lines of like both of what they said, is there's a lot of things coming and we don't know what's in the future. But a lot of it has to do with weight and a lot of it has to do with the length of charge and how fast something's charging. But if we can get it lighter, and if we can get it charging faster, there's so much more opportunity there that the growth that we've seen in the last 10 years, just think if we can see, when you look at the timeline, that it's only gonna get quicker and quicker and quicker as we learn and learn and learn. So who knows really what's gonna happen? Just like I've said before, kind of just stay open-minded as to what's coming down and just don't be so tunnel vision as to what's happening. But your son can always go on to a lot of the corporate websites. Look, what does he get excited about? What's the not necessarily what industry, what product is he excited about? You know, is he excited about?
Is that a rhetorical question? I was gonna say anime.
if he's excited
He built
about
his
a
senior
product.
project was a hydraulic wheelchair. I was all excited about it, but then he just kind of went and works in Encino at La Pan. So,
But if there's a product or some sort of thing, there's all kinds of, you can go on a corporate website, like with Ford, you can go on the corporate website and look at internships. There's a ton of internships.
And they pay more than $25.
And they at Irvine, because it's his way to kind of test the waters. See, and at least my parents' generation, you signed up to work for a company that, you know, was cradle to grave. And as parents, grandparents of the younger generation, and that's kind of my job of what I do, is to translate between parents and grandparents to the kids that are coming through right now, is your workspace and your work life is not the same as what they're coming into right now. They're going to change jobs every 2 years. They're going to move. They're not gonna be in the same industry. They're not gonna stay in toxic work environments. They're not gonna deal with all of the shenanigans that people of my generation, my parents and my grandparents put up with. The sociology of the work environment is so different now than what we grew up with. So what's good for him is not what necessarily be what you want for him, and everybody's like, they changed. And I'm sure you see this too, resume jump every 2 years somewhere, because
That's longevity.
yeah, it's like, they're just constantly changing, but they're always looking for something different, better, and bigger, because that's the only way they're going to move up. And so he may wanna go into STEM or may change. I mean, we make a lot of money at what we do at the dealership, but find out what's his passion. Just tell him, say, hey, what company do you like the most? Go to the corporate website and look up internships. You never know what's gonna be there, cause sitting at home and, you know, playing World of Warcraft all day ain't gonna make it. Just gotta put yourself out there, be able to say, take notes.
Bringing up a good point on our side, it's our responsibility as leaders and stewards of generation to understand more, to come that 50-60% of the way, and to challenge people. If you can get challenged, you can stay in a career. People leave 6 months, a year, 2 years, abuse, shenanigans, whatever else, not value set. But mostly they leave because they're just not feeling like they're serving a purpose, and that's a big important thing. I mean, great, whatever, 5 generations ago, grandpa was a cobbler. That's a shoe repairman. And so, son was, or whatever, dad was a cobbler, you're fixing shoes. Now it's, it's microwave generation 20 years ago, now it's this. I got another job I do. We need to get people to understand and, like you said, find a passion, get engaged, but on the other side of that, it's the responsibility of us to make sure that we're getting them challenged.
Thank you for clarifying, Scott. I thought a cobbler was somebody who baked pies. I was like, oh, cobbler. Any other questions? Yes.
I have two, if that's okay. One's kind of great. My name's Nathaniel. I'm in my 5th year at CSUN, majoring in mechanical engineering, and I'm minoring in electrical engineering. And well, my first question was kind of directed towards you, Mr. BC. How did you get into motorsport today? Like, it's a different environment. That'd be like my first question. And then my second question is kind of open for all of you. But how would one go about like setting themselves apart from the rest of the crowd? Because I've talked to a lot of my peers in engineering, and a lot of them are having issues trying to find a job at the moment. And also, I've applied to many internships to try to get one during the summer, and I've actually just been like denied a lot today. I got back, they got back to me today, and I got denied. And I feel like just what can I do to further set myself apart from the rest?
I can speak to what I look for in engineering students when they first come out of school or if they look for internships, extracurricular activities in the field. So if you're interested in motorsports, it always helps if you have something, if you've done something or explored something where you yourself have played around with making a car go fast or exploring modifying the car, so on and so forth. Because I've seen two engineers that have great, aspirations and on paper look the same, but one individual actually raced Miatas. And I hired him because he showed that promise of having interest in everything motorsport. Above and beyond that, there are a lot of local speed shops in the greater LA area. I don't know if you're very local, where you could walk in and say, hey, I'm an engineering student, can I come in once a week and just help out? Do you have any internship opportunities available? That has worked for me, even when I was coming up, and it can work for you as well. Showing that initiative and promise can go a long way in separating yourself from other engineers. Or engineering students who are looking for a job. And also what I mentioned earlier, forgive me for being redundant, really thinking out of the box. Most of my peers who kind of stayed within that engineering box ended up not getting great jobs, or ended up doing something else. Thinking out of the box and being curious is what's helped me succeed in this arena. And it's something that I can't really emphasize more, that's the kind of mindset you need to have that curious mind, continue to do that and go above and beyond. And you can do it. And if you have further questions or need some insight with some speed shops in the greater LA area, after this, I'll be more than happy to share with you some of the people I know, because sometimes it's who you know, to get you into the door. But yeah, don't fret. There's great opportunities out there. And motorsports is wonderful. It's constantly changing. If you love challenges, if you love problem solving, it's the place to be. From dyno tuning and mapping to engineering analysis, you name it, it's amazing stuff. So yeah.
Okay, quick couple of things. To your point, it reminded me of somebody that I was interviewing 30 students in a class. They got UTI, so they spent $50,000 to get a t-shirt. And then they were over with Mercedes Benz. It's true, but it's student debt, who cares? So then they have to go 16 weeks over at Mercedes Benz, and then they have to prove themselves. And same thing with Porsche, it's 16 weeks. And if you're late, or you're like I said before, but that's not my point there. I was interviewing them all, and this one kid was just so quiet and wouldn't make eye contact. Put yourself out there. But when he came to interview with me later, he brings me this book, and he just goes, here's a car I built, here's something here, here's the church. I'm like, oh, what's that? Oh, I do 6 oil changes every service. I'm like, you're my guy. I mean, right? But I wouldn't have known that if I didn't give him a chance. The other thing I see people, as I was saying, make the eye contact. It's good to get your passions out, because you want to be around people that share your passions. And if you hide them, we can't know. And maybe you'll run across a jerk. Okay, that's one less jerk you're not going to have in your life, right? And then, unfortunately, and has happened with a couple of our, not necessarily failure to launch kids, but I think they gave up 2 interviews before they would have gotten a job. So don't give up. Don't give up.
Yeah, I guess to apply that to myself, the jobs that I had in college or internships I had in college, I walked in. I showed up to ask, just like in person. That was like me biking into the facility and just saying, would you do this? Open to the idea of rejection. The next 3 jobs were cold, like resume drops on LinkedIn, right? You don't always hear back, a lot of rejection that phase, but I had 3 separate jobs that were all done through that. And then my last job was through someone I knew, someone I worked with previously. So it was a mix, right, for me. And it was just like, don't take it personally, right? Because when you put in, resume in the, just through LinkedIn. You never know, right? You don't know who's on the other side. And it could be the algorithm and all that stuff, but you just have to be persistent. But try it all. You know, I really do believe that, because it's happened every way for me.
As somebody who looks at all the resumes, let me tell you, I get every single resume that comes across our desk for anything that's service or service related. And it's a numbers game, really. But make sure that what you're applying to is tailored for each specific one. If this is what you really wanna do, and those are the internships that you really wanna do, you cannot turn in the same resume for each internship. You have to tailor it for what you're doing. Because I get resumes all the time, it's like, oh, hey, I wanna be in automotive, and then I look and I'm like, I've worked at McDonald's and I've worked at Jack in the Box and I like cars and they're cool. Okay, and? Like, what are the extracurricular activities are you doing related to your field, but what else are you doing that's, you know, different? Or what makes you you? As you were kind of saying, one thing that I've learned at Ford is when you're representing yourself, you are representing your own brand.
Yeah.
And you are your brand. And you have to be able to put that on paper and communicate it, because for one internship, there could be 1,000 different people applying to the one thing. Because there's more people in schools right now than there was, especially like in the trades, there's way more now than there was 3 years ago. To be able to put yourself apart and just maybe expand on what you wanna do a little bit. Look at something a little bit different that may put you down a different path, because you never know what you're gonna get. And just tailor everything. It's gonna take a lot of time and effort to do that. But if they see it more tailored to what you're applying to, you're more likely to get some sort of communication with the person looking on the other end. Versus the same resume from every person and you see it formatted the same way from everything. Cause like, I'm sure you see what, you know exactly which ones come from Pierce, you know exactly which ones comes from UTI, you know exactly which ones come from another one, cause they all look the same. You have to make it a little bit simpler.
I would just use this as a plug as well for the CSUN Career Center. We have this Career Center on campus that they do resume critiques. You can sit down with them and show them the internship job description and your resume, and they'll help you tailor it. I know it can be intimidating to go there, but once you go, they're very friendly, I promise. And just wanted to add as well, like, you showed up today, so that was definitely something you did that's kind of putting you apart from your peers. I saw you were here early, you were waiting patiently, so just keep doing that and you'll definitely get somewhere.
And the one thing that I don't see anymore is cover letters.
Yeah.
Cover letters. If you want an internship, you tell them why you want that internship on a cover letter. That's gonna stand out like a big old siren anymore. People don't do it.
And that's a great place to put too, if you don't have that direct, where it's not obvious on your resume that you have the experience, your cover letter's a place where you have that opportunity to say why you wanna get into that industry. So definitely utilize that resource as well. Other question?
Thank you so much for the interesting discussion. I'm Shab, an AmeriCorps fellow here at CSUN. And I keep wondering if our power grids can even support this surge in EV vehicles, but I guess that's more for the city officials to answer. So my question goes back to what Michelle said about sustainability, that in the future we don't know what sustainability will be, how it will be defined, and it can be different. So even though lithium batteries are more sustainable than fossil fuels, there are natural resources that can be depleted. So my question is, what are some ways we're making sure that they get recycled so we can make sure they don't get depleted?
I can speak to that, to my experience, if you don't mind. First, on the grid perspective, I mean, I have solar at my facility and my residence, so I use that immensely for powering my vehicles. I was boasting to my father 2 days ago, I haven't touched a fuel pump this year. It's very interesting. At all. But as I mentioned earlier, solid state batteries. I mean, with the anodes and cathodes, we're not using cobalt, which by the way is still used for desulfurization of crude oil, but we won't be using that in the future. Lithium mining will be a thing of the past, because with the solid state substrates that are in lab now, but gradually coming into the market, really aluminum based. So that helps tremendously. We will no longer have the opportunity to mine for components from the earth that are not renewable. That's going to be a thing of the past. It's just a matter of time. Right now, lithium ion is pretty common, relatively cost effective, but it's going to get cheaper and better and not as detrimental to our environment. So it is happening sooner than later. I suspect in short half a decade, we will be there. And in terms of the ones that left over, I'm doing my part. Some of the vehicles I built, the car that, am I able to share this? I'll share this. You guys are family. That vehicle out there, believe it or not, has batteries recycled from a hybrid Chrysler Pacificus. That's what happened there. So I used
Why it's so
something.
fast.
There you go. So I have done my part in my very first vehicle was something where I didn't buy a new battery. I just recycled what was commercially available. And then we are seeing second life opportunities with home storage with old batteries as well. So I think I'm being concerned about landfills just being filled up with batteries. There are companies out there that are using it for home storage and for small speed shops. A lot of them are using some of the ones from rental yards and repurposing them in community vehicles.
Yeah, storage is basically where we believe that some of that can be utilized, right? And so that will be something that helps with the demand on the grid, because it should store power temporarily during those high demand times and then dispense it out. So again, doesn't need to hold power for very long times and forever, but ideally for that temporary kind of like dip in capacity for the grid.
Great question, great question.
Any other questions from the audience? We can end there. Oh, question.
How are things coming with the compact batteries, the snatched together ones?
Same thing. We're seeing the solid state chemistry once again will allow us to have batteries that are smaller, a lot more dense for the same footprint, which means for layman or laywoman, a lot more range. So it's happening. It's happening. You know, the older. You know, not too long ago we had lead acid. My forklift on my facility saw lead acid. Shame on me. But they're pretty big, and you compare it to the same output nowadays with lithium ion is much smaller. The solid state batteries that are more aluminum based will be even smaller. So we'll have cars that are a lot more cost effective, as I mentioned earlier, a lot more smaller, with a lot more range and faster charging time. So
5 years?
it's great. Yeah, 5 years.
We'll see it in 5 years or less.
Yeah.
Interesting thing we brought up last year or the year before, whatever it was, but the first electric vehicle was a truck by Mercedes-Benz in 1906 with lead batteries. It's just, and then they tried the experiment again in 1950s. The next generation, the non-lithium batteries, that's what can make this thing a whole game changer for us.
Well, there's no other questions from the audience. I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't do a shameless plug for CSUN's. We have 2 programs related to sustainability. So we have a minor in sustainability for students that are interested in a master's program in sustainability that's brand new. So if you're interested in potentially pursuing that, feel free. We have flyers out in the front. Reach out to me. And then I think our panelists have all offered to potentially be available to talk to them after as well. Does anyone have any final remarks before we close out? A few more minutes.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah, it's great seeing all of you.
Give another round of applause.